Yo everyone, welcome to my predictions and breakdown of the entire UFC 319 du Plessis versus Chimaev fight card, and I think I speak for all of us when I say I've been waiting for this one for a while, guys. Not only is the main event an absolutely insane fight, but the card is actually stacked with some really sick matchups and fighters in general. I literally cannot wait to break this down for you guys right now, but before we get into the predictions for this card, let's quickly recap the last UFC card and talk about our channel results as well for UFC Fight Night Dolidze versus Hernandez. I'll just be recapping the main event for the most part and then talking about my channel's betting guide results, but if you'd like to skip this at all and just see my predictions for every single fight on the card, timestamps are in the description and the comments below. But also, if you were curious to see my full thoughts on last week's fight card, I'll put a link to my full event recap and reaction in the description. To get this out of the way though, I did pick Roman Dolidze as an underdog in the main event, and man, that's on me, guys, for sure. Turned out to be a super bad pick since Hernandez just looked so good out of the gate initially. I knew from the second round onwards he was just going to steamroll Dolidze with how it was going with his pace, especially after having so much success in those early rounds. Very impressive performance from him. He was a lot faster and slicker on the feet than I thought he would be, and he was staggering Dolidze actually with some very solid shots, including a pretty hard jab as well. In terms of the rest of the card though, I thought it was actually a really good card overall with some really sick highlights. I'm sure everyone saw the slam KO from Elijah Smith, literally one of the most brutal KOs I've ever seen, and it genuinely scared and worried me for Kazama afterwards, especially since he also received some vicious ground and pound after getting KO'd. It was very, very brutal. I think in total, though, as well, there were 4 first-round KOs on the card, which was sick to see. There was Elijah Smith's KO. Jocelyn Edwards also got a KO, pretty sick in the first round. Just hit a combo and then some ground and pound strikes. Christian Leroy Duncan also had a first-round KO. He just looked like 2 levels above Eric Anders. Eric Anders was just trying to walk him down with a very wide stance. And Uros Medic also got a first-round KO, even after getting rocked and dropped himself in like the first 10 seconds of the fight. Very insane. The card was great to watch, guys. In regards to my results overall for the card, for whoever is curious, we went 9-3 on picks overall on the card, which I'm actually very happy about. In terms of my betting guide results, though, I'll put them up on screen for you guys now. We did really well on bets overall on the guide. Had a rather large bet on my confident picks list as a parlay that actually did cash this week, this time around, which is always good. Even without it, though, I believe we would have made a slight profit anyway. But in total for our results, we made 2.13 units of profit on the card, wagering 5.8 units total overall, which is a pretty good ROI percentage, I believe. It's very solid in my eyes overall. I think I am improving in creating these bets and identifying solid underdogs, so I'm quite happy with the results. Anyways, guys, I've recapped the card for you guys there and the channel results as well, but we are here for UFC 319 du Plessis vs Chimaev, and we're looking to destroy this next card on picks and on bets, so stay tuned in this video for all the fighter info I'm going to be laying out for you guys here. I will be posting the full card betting guide video for this card later on this week when the bet lines are fully out, so you guys can see all the bets I'm thinking about for this card. And if you do want to be a part of the betting guide by becoming the subscribers bet of the week, please go into the comment section below and let me know what your favorite bets are for this card, and I will be taking one person's bet to add to the betting guide for this week. This bet may be a specific bet I like, or even the top comment with the most likes on the video. If you think you've got a solid bet in mind, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below and you could be featured in the next guide. Anyways, guys, to finally jump into the video, I'll be starting with the prelims and working my way all the way to the main event. Timestamps are in the description and the comment section below if you'd like to skip to any fight in particular. We're going to be starting with the first fight of the card, which is Karine Silva versus Dione Barboza. And the thing is about this fight, guys, Dione Barboza is the underdog going into it. I know Karine Silva was also meant to face a JJ Aldrich, I believe it was, and now they had a change of opponent in Dione Barboza. I know that wasn't long ago either, so Dione Barboza is taking this fight on short notice. I believe that's 100% correct as well. It's most likely around 2 to 3 weeks notice, so she gets put at a disadvantage just from that in my mind. But when I do compare the two fighters and how much I like either of them and how much I see either of them as high-level competition, I prefer the game of Dione Barboza, and I do think she is the more technical and skilled fighter overall. She looks solid in the scrambles, has fantastic takedowns and throws since I believe her background is in judo, and on the feet, she is quite fast, and that's something I've really noticed from her. She's quite fast, she's quite disciplined in how she hits and gets out of range, which I like a lot. She has a solid rear hand as well. Karine Silva is pretty similar to Dione Barboza in a lot of ways, but I do believe Karine Silva is the more powerful of the two if I had to give her an edge in somewhere, and her BJJ is more highly regarded than Barboza's, but I'm not really thinking that way, to be honest with you, in regards to the BJJ or the grappling in general. I think even though this fight is on short notice for Dione Barboza, and even though she is an underdog here, I think I will actually pick Dione Barboza to get this one done by decision, just because I think she should be able to secure her takedowns over Karine Silva, and I think she should be able to do some solid work, slowing her down and getting some control time. I think on the feet, the fight might be relatively even since they both aren't the greatest strikers in the division, but I do think having the speed advantage is going to be important for Dione Barboza. And something else I wanted to add as well, guys, is I actually do a lot of research on the fighters, as you know, and I did spot that back in 2019, Dione Barboza actually did beat Karine Silva in a fight, but to confirm it, I was trying for a long time to find the fight tape for the fight, but I was unable to, since some regional fights are just impossible to find recordings of. But just so you know, it was something I did factor into this pick because she was able to beat her by unanimous decision win in the Katana fight promotion. So I'd only assume, guys, that she must have had some sort of success somewhere when they matched up together. You know what I mean? So I wish I could find that fight tape, but I am going to pick the underdog here regardless. Moving on to Bryan battle versus Nursulton Ruziboev. And you know something about this, guys. This was a fight I got a bet on extremely early when the odds and money line was out. I'm going to go with Nursulton Ruziboev to get it done over Bryan Battle as an underdog here. I believe I got the bet in at plus 150, but the line is just getting closer already, guys. Bryan Battle is just not as good as people were hyping him up to be, and I've been seeing these holes in his game for a long time. That's why it really did tilt me so much to see Bryan Battle get the split decision win over Randy Brown when I thought Randy Brown should have won that fight relatively clearly, in my opinion, on damage. I picked Randy Brown as a pretty sizable underdog in that fight, and I knew he would cause a lot of problems for Battle in their fight together, and frankly, he was piecing him up at range and forced him to just clinch up against the cage like I'm just going to say it frankly, like a bloody pussy, guys, for such a long duration of the fight. It was ridiculous to watch, and then even more ridiculous to give someone a win after they do that without getting off as much damage as their opponent. He even missed weight for that fight, if I remember correctly, by like 4 or 5 pounds. So I'm not picking him to win this fight, guys. Nursulton is really good at range. He will be the taller and rangier fighter in this matchup, which Bryan Battle will not usually be used to either. And Nursulton Ruziboev also packs quite a bit of power in his punches and is decently well-rounded in the grappling himself. He hasn't got crazy amounts of UFC experience against the top guys, but he does have a lot of MMA experience in general, and this will be his 50th pro fight, for crying out loud, guys. I'm worried for him a little bit though in the grappling, but I don't think he is that bad in the grappling. He just got like, I would say he got a little bit exposed by a very explosive and well-rounded fighter in Joaquin Buckley in the grappling, and I don't even think that's necessarily too bad, and I don't think that's a terrible loss at all. Something else to add as well, guys, is that this fight is at middleweight because of the weight misses from Bryan Battle, I think, in his last fight, and I don't think Bryan Battle is big enough for middleweight personally. I think he's going to have a harder time being physical against a lot of guys, including Ruziboev, especially since Ruziboev is like 6'5". He's bloody huge, guys. I'm going to go with the underdog here in Nursulton Ruziboev, and I'm going to say he wins by decision victory. I actually feel quite good about this one. I feel relatively good, which is strange since Nursulton is an underdog, but I just think he's got what it takes to beat Bryan Battle. Moving on to Edson Barboza versus Drakkar Klose, and I am going to pick Edson Barboza to get it done over Drakkar Klose. I just think he's going to be the better striker in this matchup overall. I think he's got decent takedown defense. I know he's been dominated by fighters in the past, like Bryce Mitchell with the takedowns, but Bryce Mitchell is a really good grappler in general, and Drakkar Klose, in my opinion, He's just a little too sloppy on the feet. And Edson Barboza, I know he's lost even recently on the feet to other guys, not just in the grappling, but on the feet to people like Lerone Murphy. But Lerone Murphy's really good, guys. He's the co-main for this card as well. I just think Edson Barboza will just be that level ahead of Drakkar Klose in the striking. And I think he wins by decision victory in this fight. Maybe by 29-28 decision. It would be surprising for me to see Drakkar Klose take down Edson Barboza and control him for multiple rounds in this fight. So I am going to go with Edson Barboza. It's going to be a relatively quick pick for this fight, but he is the taller, more rangier, more explosive, more technical, and just overall better striker in general, and he's probably got more power than Drakkar Klose too, so I'm going to go with Edson Barboza to win this fight, and I feel relatively good about it. Moving on to Chase Hooper versus Alexander Hernandez, and Chase Hooper seems to be trying to get wins over every single veteran inside the UFC right now. Literally just beat Clay Guida, then Jim Miller, and now Alexander Hernandez, although Hernandez is actually only 32 years old, which is just crazy to me because the guy has fought so many of the top guys like Cowboy Cerrone, Beneil Dariush, Renato Moicano, and the list goes on. I do think Chase Hooper should be able to get it done though over Alexander Hernandez, but this fight, at least stylistically, isn't bad for Hernandez, guys. He's relatively hard to get down, but I do think Chase Hooper is good enough to do it, guys. I will just mention that. But he is also especially hard to hold down overall on the ground and keep control of. He will also have the power advantage on the feet, and probably, even in the striking, he should have the advantage technically on the feet as well. Hernandez is quite quick and explosive overall, and Chase still looks relatively sloppy on the feet for me. And even when he knocked down Vyacheslav Borshev, who is a great striker, he just still didn't look that good on the feet, in my opinion. If Chase has a lot of issues trying to get him down to the ground and hold him on the ground, this may turn into an upset victory rather quickly, in my opinion. But like I already said, guys, I do think Chase Hooper is good enough to get down Hernandez in this fight, do some ground and pound, and potentially get the submission attempts in there and win the fight in the end. I'm going to say my pick is Chase Hooper by decision victory or potentially by submission win. That would be my official prediction for this fight, but I wouldn't mind potentially maybe risking a plus 3.5 bet on Hernandez this time around, but Chase could submit him, so it might be a riskier one. I'll need to check the odds on that when the lines come out to see if it's worth it though. Chase Hooper is the pick, guys. Moving on to Jessica Andrade versus Lupita Godinez, and you know what, guys? I've picked Andrade as an underdog a couple of times in the past, and it has not worked out for me at all, guys. So out of principle, I should be going with Lupita Godinez here to get it done. But joking aside, I do just think that Lupi has been looking quite good overall, and the fact that I know she is going to try to wrestle Andrade into the ground in this fight really makes me want to lean towards her here quite a lot. She's well-rounded, she's going to shoot those takedowns. I see her grinding down Andrade in this fight to win a decision here. That should happen as long as Lupita Godinez doesn't do anything crazy in this fight to chuck the win away, because Andrade can be quite dangerous if you let her be on the feet for too long, doing her thing on the feet. Lupita Godinez is the pick, most likely by decision win here, guys, making this a fairly quick pick again. Moving on to Gerald Meerschaert versus Michal Oleksiejczuk, and now the initial thought when the fight was announced was Michal Oleksiejczuk will chin Gerald Meerschaert within the first round, maybe first 2 rounds. That was my initial thought, and to be honest, I still think that's relatively true, and I am going to go with Michal Oleksiejczuk by knockout in this matchup. The dude just starts so fast every single fight. He's dangerous as fuck in that opening round, and against Gerald Meerschaert, where he shouldn't have to worry about the striking too much as he's closing the distance, I think he just gets it done here, as long as his takedown defense is also on point as well. But mark my words, guys, if at any point this fight gets to the ground and Gerald Meerschaert ends up in some sort of dominant position, Michal is most likely fucked big time. So I will say that this might be a good candidate for like an inside the distance type of bet, potentially like some sort of bet that you can bet on that won't see the 3rd round, maybe like a 1.5 round under bet, 2.5 round under bet, Something like that, because I think this will be a high-paced fight that Michal Oleksiejczuk will put on, especially in the first round. This is over early, guys, in my opinion, by KO from him or sub by Meerschaert. Michal Oleksiejczuk is the pick, though. I'm going to say by KO in the first round. Moving on to King Green versus Diego Ferreira. And now this one is a pretty surprisingly tricky one to me, because I genuinely believe that Bobby Green could get this one done because of how tricky he is on the feet to deal with. He's always been solid. He moves well. He seems to do well even on the back foot, so it definitely is possible for me to see him winning this fight, especially by decision win after dealing the more damaging shots on the feet. But I've been visualizing something all week, guys, about this fight, and you guys can let me know if you think the same way or if you see the same thing happening in general. I just see Bobby Green doing well in this fight early, looking solid on the feet overall, maybe taking the first round on damage, but at some point in this fight, he gets rocked by a shot and gets finished in this fight. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, I see Diego Ferreira KOing Bobby Green here. It must be all the damage I've seen Green take in the latter half of his career, and the two absolutely vicious knockouts I've seen him take by Jalen Turner, and now in his most recent loss against Mauricio Ruffy. He's coming back to fight after only 5 months off as well, after being absolutely flatline KO'd, and I'm worried for him big time in this fight, guys. I think this fight stays on the feet the majority of the time. I think if anyone does mix it up and shoots in, it's probably going to be Bobby Green at one point in this fight. And if Diego Ferreira gets taken down at all, he's actually a very solid scrambler, and he's hard to hold down in general, unless you're like an absolutely elite grappler and control dominant fighter like a Grant Dawson or Gamrot. Diego Ferreira is the pick here. I honestly think he wins this fight by KO, but I don't necessarily think that Bobby Green by decision win is a bad pick at all. The dude can do it. He's definitely got the skills, but I'm just too concerned about his durability right now against a decently heavy-handed opponent. Moving on to Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. And guys, just a reminder that if you do like the content as well that you're watching and want to show me some love, please like the video and subscribe if you're not already. It just helps to support me, helps to grow the channel, and thanks for that, guys. I appreciate it a lot. Back to the prediction for this fight. I will be going with Kai Asakura to win this fight, but I have a concern, guys. Tim Elliott can be quite awkward in the striking, but that's not what bothers me at all, if I'm being honest. It's the grappling and takedowns of Elliot that I'm worrying about mostly. The dude is very tricky and is decently good at finding submissions on his opponents after he secures the takedown, but even when I'm thinking about all this and I'm concerned about it, I still feel like I'm going to go with Kai Asakura to get this one done, most likely by KO as well. I do think Kai Asakura is exceptionally good on the feet, and the way the dude moves, his speed, his timing on some of his shots, it's really, really good, and I don't think many guys could compete with him in the pure stand-up game. I see him working his game in this fight, using those absolutely deadly knees he's got to attack the body and head of Tim Elliott. He's also got a fantastic right hand off the back foot that I can see working in this fight. Tim Elliott needs to close the distance in this fight to engage every single time. When he does, he will leave himself open to get caught by Kai Asakura, in my opinion. I will say something, though. I know that Tim Elliott is older, coming off like an almost 2-year layoff, which is never good, by the way, as well. But Kai Asakura has only fought once in the UFC and has no wins in the UFC against anyone inside the organization. He's relatively green when it comes to UFC competition, even though I know he fought the champ as his only UFC fight. But the fact does remain true, guys. Kai Asakura is the pick, though. I think he wins by KO or decision, but I'm leaning towards KO. And you know something else? I'll add this in as well. I honestly thought that Kai Asakura looked pretty good in his fight against Pantoja. He was having a lot of success on the feet. He hit Pantoja with that knee to the body and head, landed fantastic strikes on the front and back foot as well, but Pantoja is just another beast in the UFC. He's got a granite chin on top of everything as well, so it probably didn't seem like Asakura was doing anything at all to him, but he really did look good in my opinion. But the devil really is in the details, guys. Kai's the pick. Moving on to Jared Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page. This is such a cool fight. This card is absolutely covered with some sick fights, but as much as I think Jared Cannonier is a solid underdog for this fight, especially after showing us his performance against Gregory Rodriguez, I just think MVP is really hard to deal with overall, and you got to be a predominant grappler, or at least you have to be someone who is willing to change it up and grapple for the majority of the fight to beat him. Even though MVP is older in his career, the dude's still so fast, he's so fluid, he's so mobile, and he still hits really, really hard. I've been picking MVP to win pretty much every single one of his fights since he got to the UFC. I think I picked him to beat Kevin Holland, I'm pretty sure. I also picked him to beat Shara Magomedov by decision, and I said he would also outstrike Ian Gary in their fight to get the win. I was right about him getting the better of Ian Gary on the feet, but Ian did adapt very well and turned into a grappler for the majority of that fight. I can see this fight being a very fast-paced fight from the get-go, with Cannonier trying to close the distance, but just having issues against MVP's range and speed advantage. Cannonier always seems to manage to land some big shots on his opponent, so I do think MVP will take a couple of decent shots in this fight, but I can just see MVP managing to land a massive counter right off the back foot when Jared Cannonier overextends. I think he gets him out of there in this fight, guys. I think we're going to see him have a similar performance to the Kevin Holland versus MVP fight in terms of the amount of solid strikes connecting on Jared Cannonier in this fight. I think if MVP lands the same shots or anywhere near the same amount of shots as he landed on Kevin Holland in this fight, Cannonier goes to sleep, in my opinion. Kevin Holland's chin was just insane in that fight. He took so many massive right hands, and that spinning elbow in round 3 was absolutely vicious. I have no idea how he took that shot. I think Jared might clinch up or shoot at some point in this fight, but MVP isn't absolutely atrocious at defending takedowns, so I see it staying standing for the vast majority of the time, and when you are standing with MVP, you're pretty much losing the fight almost guaranteed. Official prediction is MVP by KO in this fight. Could, of course, see it going to decision win because Cannonier has some decent recovery after he gets hurt in his fights, but for some reason, guys, I really think he puts him away in this one. Moving on to the feature fight of the card, Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, this fight is probably in second place for me as the fight I'm most excited to see on this card. This fight's going to be an absolute banger for as long as it lasts for, and I do think this fight ends in KO, by the way, guys. I do think Geoff Neal will be on the receiving end of a pretty nasty KO here. I know Prates had his worst performance to date against Ian Gary, but the dude is still super dangerous, and this is the ideal matchup for him. Someone who is a predominant boxer who probably won't try to shoot any takedowns on him. The only downside to fighting Geoff Neal is he's not just a random boxer. He's extremely quick and powerful with those hands, and on top of that, he's relatively technical when closing the distance. The only issue is that I don't see him outdoing Prates on the feet for 3 rounds unless he like rocks him badly in 2 of the 3 rounds to win a decision, which I don't really see happening. Geoff Neal is fantastic, guys, but he is relatively one-dimensional, and he does his best work moving forward against a slower moving opponent that will back up against him. When Geoff Neal fought someone like Ian Gary or Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, it wasn't surprising to see them cause him such issues because of their speed and lateral footwork. Prates will most likely be quite fast as well. I think he might potentially be faster than Geoff Neal, but I don't know that 100%. But I do know for sure that I don't think he will be backed up by Geoff Neal, and that is what's going to cause him the biggest problems, in my opinion. I think that Geoff Neal doesn't fight as well on the back foot. Prates will not stop moving forward. He has a very hard jab. He's just the more technical striker in this matchup in general, in my opinion, and I do see some very scrappy and scary exchanges incoming in this fight, just due to the fact that both guys normally like moving forward, but I do see Carlos Prates being able to back him up, getting the better of the exchanges regardless if they're in the pocket or at range, putting Geoff Neal out at some point in this fight. My official prediction will be Carlos Prates by KO, most likely in the later rounds, maybe round 2 if I had to guess one. You know, I've watched a lot of Geoff Neal's fights just for this video, and man, even Neil Magny had a lot of success on the feet with his kicks and jabs, and if Neil Magny is piecing you up at moments, Carlos Prates should be able to get you out of there. Moving on now to the co-main event of the card, Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico, and you know what, guys? This was another fight that I got in early on in terms of underdog bets, so if you understand what that means, it means I am picking Lerone Murphy to win this fight by decision win as the underdog here. And don't get me wrong, I'm not fully like gung-ho confident on this pick. I do think this fight is very close on paper, and I understand fully why people do have someone like Aaron Pico as a favorite over a guy who's undefeated and established in the UFC. I understand how dangerous Pico is. I've been following his career for a while now. The guy's extremely well-rounded. He's got KO power on top of it all, but I do think he's got a lot of holes in his game that someone like Lerone Murphy can capitalize on if he manages to stuff the takedowns of Aaron Pico. Pico. I actually expect Pico to shoot a lot in this fight. I think he's going to be grapple heavy in this fight. I think if he does win this fight, it will be whilst he gets a lot of ground control time and takedown attempts. It would set up his hands a lot more and tire out Lerone Murphy in the process as well. But man, I've just got this feeling that Lerone Murphy takes this one with his striking speed and his footwork. I think for someone as good as Aaron Pico, like I mentioned earlier, he's still got some holes in his game, and the major hole in his game is definitely his defense, in my opinion. I do think he actually takes quite a few shots as he's closing the distance, and sometimes he can get a little too over-eager to plant his feet whilst he's marching down opponents, and can end up sort of in an extreme wide stance with his hips square to his opponents, which is just never good. Aaron Pico also seems to struggle with guys that use a lot of kicks and knees, especially when they're kicking his legs, like kicking his calves, doing a lot of calf kicks. And I do feel as though Murphy has that in his skill set, and also will most likely be game planning to attack the legs and potentially the body of Aaron Pico to slow him down in this fight. And for some reason, guys, I just see Lerone Murphy clipping Aaron Pico either whilst he's trying to close the distance or while he starts a reckless combination. It's just something I can't get out of my mind, and Pico has been KO'd back-to-back before in his career. I think it was around 2019, so it was a lot earlier in his career, but still, it is something to note. Pico's also making his UFC debut on a pay-per-view in the larger octagon size as well, in the co-main event too, after taking a year and a half off of fighting. It seems like a lot to weigh on someone, and we watched someone like Patchy Mix not show up pretty much in their UFC debut, which I did predict. I picked Mario Batista to beat Patchy Mix by decision. Same with Pitbull having a terrible performance against Yair Rodriguez as well. I picked Yair to win that fight. Sometimes the UFC can be a lot to handle on your first fight, but Aaron Pico is just really good, guys. This is still a really hard pick for me, even with all those said disadvantages that I'm giving Aaron Pico. This is more of a gut pick, in my opinion. I saw the odds very early, and initially, just instinctively, I thought to myself that Lerone Murphy was being a bit underestimated here, and him being a moderate underdog just seemed insane, and seemed like a solid opportunity to jump on as an underdog pick and bet. I do think he can get it done here, but I'm more worried about the wrestling of Aaron Pico, like I've already mentioned, than the hands of Aaron Pico, which might sound a little crazy. Lerone Murphy is quite solid though. He's defensively responsible and he's accurate on the feet, but he can be taken down at times, and Pico is really an underrated wrestler. Fantastic wrestling, but something to add on top of that, which I thought about for this pick, is that he does try to do a lot of damage after he takes people down on the ground, using that really solid wrestling, which is a good thing, of course, but he always seems to manage to lose that sort of dominant position because of that ground and pound. And I think Lerone Murphy can get back up to his feet, capitalizing on those opportunities after he gets taken down in this fight. Enough about this fight though, I've talked about it a ton now. Lerone Murphy as the underdog is the pick, most likely by decision win, but I could potentially see that KO off the back foot. Moving on now to the fight everyone is waiting for, the main event. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. And to everyone watching this video right now, you don't know how much I've struggled to finally lock in a prediction for this main event. I felt good about both as fighter picks during the months I've had to think about this matchup, and I've only locked in who I'm picking as of 2 days ago, really. That's how tough this has been for me, guys, and what it has ultimately come down to for me is just a simple thought. The same thought I'm sure everyone has had when thinking about this fight. The general consensus, which is, does Khamzat Chimaev take down and submit DDP in the first 2 rounds, or does DDP weather the storm early and take over in the latter half of the fight? The majority of people see either Khamzat winning early or DDP winning the fight late, and the common denominator with both of these scenarios is actually the same, guys. At the end of the day, we know for a fact DDP cannot stop Khamzat Chimaev from ragdolling him and putting him into terrible positions in the first round of this fight if Khamzat does go for it like he normally does. That really is the main takeaway for me, guys. We all know he can't stop him. It's just about surviving that early onslaught. If he is able to do it, Chimaev will take him down in round 1 and either have full back control or full mount. And it's really hard to pick against the guy who you can pretty much guarantee 100% of the time will be in that sort of dominant position. And to talk about Dricus, his last 4 fights have been against predominantly stand-up game fighters. Whittaker is a bit of a mix and he was able to take down du Plessis, but apart from that, he's mostly been striking with his opponents and has shown a lot of improvement on the feet. I do think he is the better overall striker in this matchup against Khamzat Chimaev, and we know his gas tank is guaranteed to be better than his for sure, but I've watched all of DDP's fights inside the UFC, and the last time he versed a grappler was 5 fights ago against Derek Brunson. That fight was only 2.5 years ago, guys, and I'm seeing a lot of people talk shit and say, oh, that fight was like in the bloody Stone Age, guys. It was ages ago. Do not listen to these people. This fight was only 2.5 years ago. It's not long ago at all. And watching that fight, guys, I know DDP is good with his BJJ. That is something I cannot deny. I watched him submit the entire Gracie Butter team in a BJJ tournament not long ago. But man, Derek Brunson had him in absolute strife in the first round of their fight using his wrestling, and that's something I just can't get out of my mind. Derek not only had full back control with rear naked choke attempts in that fight, of course the attempts were on the chin and not under the chin, but still, he was in that position attempting those chokes, but he not only had the full back control attempting those positions and attempting those submissions, he also managed to get on top of Dricus in another part of that round and got into full mount straight away. I'm sorry to say, but if Derek Brunson is doing that to you, I can't pick you to survive the early Khamzat Chimaev onslaught in the grappling. My official prediction for this fight will be Khamzat Chimaev by submission, most likely inside the first 2 rounds, and that is something that's crazy to say. You have a champion who's beaten and finished arguably the 2 of the best middleweights of all time in Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya, who's beaten Sean Strickland by decision twice, by the way, which not many people can do at all, and it's still like, oh yeah, a Khamzat by first round sub. Like, isn't that just mentally insane to anyone else? Like, doesn't anyone just feel like it's crazy to say? In my opinion, it just shows that Khamzat is the most aggressive, powerful, technical, and dominant grappler we have ever seen in the sport of mixed martial arts. I know Khabib might be better in terms of technical grappling, but when you mix in all the attributes I listed earlier, no one matches up to Khamzat, guys. That's why he's the favorite in this matchup as the challenger against a very good champion. That's why the majority of people will believe he wins this by early submission, and that's why ultimately I have decided to go with him to win this fight. And you know what, guys? Even though my official prediction is by submission, it wouldn't surprise me to see a ground and pound TKO win when the ref has to come in to stop the fight. Maybe it'll be by getting full mount and raining down hooks from the sides. But anyways, guys, we will only truly know how this fight will play out once fight night rolls around. That's my prediction for the main event, guys, and that wraps up my full card predictions and breakdown for the entire UFC 319 du Plessis versus Chimaev fight card. And if you guys have any thoughts or any questions for me regarding the card, feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to respond to every single comment left in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you guys next time.